Welcome back to the Gut Shot podcast. We've been away in various parts of the world. Sam's been in America. I've been in India. Now we're back again. Happily wedded.
Yeah.
Sam, so much water has passed under the bridge since we last had a repartee. But let's kick off the discussion with the what I would essentially call the political assassination of Charlie Kirk, the far-right conservative commentator, founder of Turning Point USA. He was 31 years old, father of two. Gunned down, ironically, when he was actually talking about gun violence. And it's mad. It's mad the way the world is going. It's mad the way America is going. And there's so many things to unpack in terms of this latest development.
Yeah. I think that, that was quite shocking. I was hoping very much that we could start today. I was looking forward to us getting back together, and talk about...
I missed you, man.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I missed our lunches and our makan and all
that. But, I was thinking that we're going to be talking about, what we did while we were away and what was happening while we were away. And then I woke up yesterday morning, which was, ironically for us, was September 11th.
Exactly, right?
I know.
Exactly. Another watershed event in American history. And on the anniversary of September.
know. And I was like, I had to get up early because I had a meeting in Port Klang. And I was like, this can't be happening, right? I think I was like 7 a.m. our time when the news, at least when I looked at the news, at my feed, and I was like, this is shocking to me. I think we didn't really have, as we were, before we started, gonna start this conversation, I don't really have any script prepared for today, to be honest, or really a framework.
Shamsul Sa'ad does not need a script.
Okay. But, I was like, I really don't know how to pack it. I was listening to some of the news program, including my favorite program on Two-Way with Mark Halperin, Dan Tarantine, and Sean Spicer, and listening to the different way they were addressing the issue from both the right side and the left side. To be frank, I wouldn't characterize Charlie as a far right. I don't know what that actually means, if you ask me today, because one of the things that that dawned on me is all his talking points or his opinions are pretty reasonable as far as I'm concerned, And I would consider myself, I've been 40 years, my association with the United States since my college days, right? I've been, I graduated, came back, and maybe I had a hiatus of about 8 years of building my multinational career. But the minute I went into business, my association with the U.S. started back again, and my good friends are still there, which we both come and go together. So to me, culturally and news-wise, I'm very close to the place. And what the first thing that dawned on me is, I would consider myself, and I think over here, you call myself a liberal.
As I am too. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think if I were in the States today, or as, the last decade, people would brand me a conservative or a right-winger.
I've never really understood the difference between right and left. I've only just understood what I believe in, right?
Right.
Do you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But look, Charlie Kirk, I didn't know about him until the assassination, to be honest.
Really?
I didn't know about him.
Okay.
And then I tried to do a bit of research on him, and he seems to me, obviously everyone has got a point of view.
That's
right?
a good thing, because now you come in with fresh mind
eyes,
of what he represents or how he has been talking. So tell me, how do you look at it?
So the thing is, he's a 31-year-old white guy, right? Obviously, his wife is blonde. They're white. They got two beautiful kids, and he's a pro. He's an avowed Christian, right? So he
Right.
believes in the seven mountains of Christianity. The fact that Christians have got to take positions in terms of politics, religion, media, business, family, education, the arts, and entertainment. He has very strong views on immigration. He's got very strong views on Islam. He's got very strong views in terms of where white Americans should sit to take their rightful place in the pantheon of American leadership and hierarchies. That's fine, right? But everybody's got an opinion, right? But the one thing that demarcated him from the rest of maybe the other youthful commentators was the fact that he was very nuanced. He seemed to be very intelligent, and his base of strength came from the point that he wanted to have a discussion. He wanted to have conversations about things that affected America, and he was always saying, let's have a chat about this and let's see where we sit on these things. He was not saying, oh, come to my part of the divide.
Yeah,
and
he
take
was
my...
going into the lion's den.
Correct. But he has a very strong position where he came from, and that's how he was able to use his 5.5 million Instagram followers, 5.5 million X followers, to bring America's youth into the Trump MAGA fold, right? And he was a focal point for Trump's electoral base from the youth standpoint. But that's okay. Everybody has a point of view. You got your point of view. I got my point of view. But if we disagree, let's have a chat. And that's where he came from. The problem is America doesn't seem to allow itself to have different points of view. It is so divided, and where people seem to come with a conflicting point of view, they get shot down, literally, right? And as Socrates said, no one is more hated than that person who speaks the truth. And all through the annals of history, whether you call it Martin Luther King, whether you call it Mahatma Gandhi, whether you call it Lincoln, right? They've been RFK, JFK, right? They've been shot down.
Well, I here's the interesting part. I was I don't really follow him per se.
No way. I mean, it's the first time I've come
but
across it.
I mean, I do know him a lot more because I think I was gravitating towards the political discussion since probably around after 2016. I think more because I was less busy, and what I saw was this young man who went into college campuses, which is almost practically a bastion of Democrat and left-leaning ideology, right? Basically, that's what academia tends to be anyway. And I remember when he would have this folding table and chair and just inviting people to talk to him.
Have a chat, have a
right?
discussion, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that's how he built his followers. Think about that first. Actually, this young man, over probably less than a decade, built up Turning Point USA into a formidable organization and following. And basically, I would say practically single-handedly flipped the youth vote for the Republican Party with the MAGA base.
Yeah.
And the weapon that he used was merely facts, reason, and talking. And that somehow is deemed in the political discussion within the last probably 10, maybe goes back to 15 years, but definitely within the last 8 to 10 years, has been poisoned in terms of ideology to it being considered as incitement, right? And when you brand the other side of the opinion to be evil, or to be the words that they use when they talk about the right side of the equation. And when it used to be, when you talk about right side and left side in American politics, you're basically talking the Democrat side being left, the right side of the ideology being Republican. But I think it has come to a point where I don't really understand. I understand, but I think the word is actually, I think it's meaningless now, because to think that you and I, basically we deem ourselves to be liberal, right? But if we go to America and espouse the views that we have, we will be deemed as far right by the left. I can guarantee you that.
Well, ironically, right?
Yeah.
And I just saw the latest report from Kind News Australia that
Right.
FBI Director Kash Patel actually they released the first images of the suspected killer.
Uh-huh.
Looked like a young kid, right? Young kid, quite skinny with a cap on. Obviously, looked below 25 years old. And they found the rifle that apparently was the suspected weapon, a machine bolt rifle that was apparently shot from a rooftop 130 meters away, right? Which doesn't require a great amount of skill, but that means it's shot with someone of an amateur level,
Correct.
basically, right?
Yeah.
But on the rifle itself, there was inscriptions of pro-trans,
Right.
and Antifa, anti-fascism, right?
Right.
Logos on it, which seems to suggest that he came from the killer came from the left side of the equation and part of the woke movement, of which obviously Charlie Kirk was on the other side. He was anti-woke, right? And he's obviously an evangelical Christian. He was took a position of being quite young, but also quite cool to be faithful to the Christian faith and all that, right? So it doesn't matter, right? If you have a different point of view, to me, it doesn't mean that I shoot you and kill you, right?
Yeah.
We just have a discussion. We we agree to disagree, and then we go and have nasi lemak together.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, Sam?
I know.
But in America, it's so divided.
Well,
and you get literally assassinated for your point of view.
Yeah, well, I was going to barge into that two-way program and give my point of view, but I couldn't even do it. You know why? It's a bit devastating in the way I thought this has happened, and I just couldn't put words for myself last night when I think about it, which is very. Which is very unlike
Very
me.
strange.
Right? But, the word that come to my mind is that there is no symmetry anymore in terms of how the vilification of one side to the other. And I'm going to be very truthful in the sense that, because usually in this type of situation, as I said, people say, "Oh, let's come together." Look at the other side. It's the other side is also equally to blame in their rhetoric and whatnot. But as somebody who's looking from the outside in, and not just looking outside in, but understanding that culture over 40 years. And the political system and the politics of it for 40 years. I think what has happened with the left in terms of how the ideology has evolved is what I would call very un-American. It is out of American values. And I'm going to tell you why. All right? Because there were two things I learned from my days in America. Okay? The first thing I learned is about is treating everybody to be equal and colorblind. Okay? In my days,
I find that hard to believe.
I know.
Given 400 years of slavery.
No.
Okay.
This is where I think.
But that's the cultural basis, right?
Yeah, but that's where I learned it.
Okay.
You see, the difference is this. You see, whilst you on the outside, are fixated on the narrative that's been told, I saw a place or a society that evolved from where they had slavery to the freeing of slaves. They went to war to free slaves, right? They went to war to have equalization. They had the Civil Rights Act for blacks to vote and whatnot. And I saw the evolution of that, right? And when I was in school, we don't care. We don't care where you come from. We don't care. And I was in Florida, which is basically the South, where the plantations are too. You know? So if I can learn that, and that's to me is the American value that I took with me. The other part of the American value, which is very important, I am a free speech absolutist.
And that's where free speech should be most absolute in America, right?
In America today, if you look at Europe, you look at UK, they got laws for hate speech. I disagree completely with that.
Yeah.
Because who's going to determine what is hate?
You know, when I went to London in 2008 to work for Reuters, right? And, in Malaysia, we make fun of each other all the time.
Yeah.
We catch out Malays, you catch out Indians, you catch
Yeah.
out Chinese.
Yeah.
You make, quite lewd remarks sometimes, right? And it's kind of accepted because we are of that generation, Sam, where we speak openly, right?
Yeah.
And nobody takes,
Nobody takes it personal.
nobody takes it insult. Nobody takes it insulting,
the
right? It's
insult.
just kacau lah, it's banter, right?
Yeah.
And then I was told by my bureau chief, who's Australian, said, "Mate, when you go to London, you cannot speak like this. You cannot make." So, and it's true. But the ironic thing is, Sam, when you go there and everybody's walking on eggshells around each other,
Yeah.
in the pub after that, 3 hours later, and everybody's had a couple of pints, right? And they're the most racist mother crushers on earth, right?
Yeah.
So which one is worse?
Yeah.
Saying it as it is,
Yeah.
or not saying it as it is, but then behind your back saying what they really thought of you.
Yeah.
I prefer the first one.
Correct.
If you're an idiot, I'll say you're an idiot, Sam.
Yeah.
And if I say you're a loud motherfucker, which you are, right? Fuck it, right?
Which
Do you know
I
what I
am.
mean, right? We are, right?
Yeah.
You are who you are. I don't know. I think the world is a strange place nowadays.
I think the world is not a strange place per se, but I think the influence of the left ideology of being politically correct has actually made it so.
So we've gone to the extreme now, right? Because let's be honest, right? Charlie Kirk was he was a very not very vocal, but he was a very clear Islamophobe, and he was a very clear homophobe, right? But that
I
doesn't
don't know whether I beg to differ.
In his early days, he was tweeting those things, right?
Hold on a second. Since you said that, I
Yeah.
wanna counter this, right?
So this thing is sagging in front of me.
Yeah, I know. It's just like your dick. It's this. I mean, he's a Christian,
Yeah.
right? Now, if he says, I've heard him talk, right? If he says, I disagree about marriage being beyond a man and a woman, that's his opinion.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's a homophobe.
That doesn't mean I shoot you for it.
Right?
This is your point
No,
of view.
I mean, a homophobe means I hate you for being gay, for example.
Yeah.
Right? I don't see anywhere in his speech that he ever hate people like that. In fact, he invites them to talk to him.
let's just have a chat. That's all.
That's
right?
all.
Yeah.
Right? So I may not agree with your lifestyle, but that doesn't mean I hate you.
So, do you not see the similarities in some sense of the repercussions of speaking out against something which is against a perceived norm? Let's just say Malaysia, for example, right? There are certain ideologies in Malaysia which, if you speak out against and you call them out, there's going to be massive repercussions.
Oh yeah,
Do
we
you know
go
what I
to
mean,
jail.
right? You go to jail. You literally go to
You
jail.
literally go to jail.
Yeah. And we don't even have to go there. They start with the word R, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's
No,
religion
don't talk about the two R's.
whether it's the monarchy or whether it's a faith.
Yeah.
So if you speak out against one or two of those things, you literally go to jail, or you get some repercussion on the street.
At the very
Do you know what I mean, right?
at the very least,
In
you'll get a
America-
cop banging your door.
100%. In America, you do speak out, and this is what happened. So the thing is, we look to the West, we look to America for free speech, free expression, because that's the land of the free and the brave. Yeehaw, right? And then this happens. So what happens next? So Sam, what happens next? Because in the bastion of free expression, this thing happens, and it's essentially civilian terrorism, right? It's not in the past where you got jihadists from the Middle East come over in a B-52. No. This is a kid with a baseball cap on and a machine bolt rifle shooting you down because he doesn't believe in what you
Let
say.
me.
So what happens next in America? This is what because there was already a silent majority in America, in the world, people who feel a certain way but they shut up because they just don't want to be vilified. And then you get Charlie Kirk, who does speak out, who does have a point of view, but he should. So what happens in the land of the free and the
Well,
brave
I
when
think
these things happen? Is my point.
I was gonna go and say that actually I think this is gonna be ironically as what Charlie's organization
Turning
is
point.
called Turning Point.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna be a turning point. I think the ideology that has been fermented by academia, by the left side of the political equation, about censoring speech, because that's basically it. It's basically censoring
You don't
speech.
speak out on pain of death. That's
Yeah.
what's happened.
Or actually you get cancelled or you lose your job, right? You try and
Ironically, Matthew Dowd, the MSNBC political commentator, who did suggest that Charlie Kirk had it coming to him for his point of view, he was sacked
Yeah.
for exactly.
Well,
so I mean that on the other side, that's just as
well,
wrong.
I mean,
Do you know what I mean? This is a point of
that
view.
I think here's the thing when I mean that to me comes to another part of it actually. That is when you say that you are a newspaper, you're a journalism, right? And you espouse that people who does free speech deserves to die. I don't think you can hold a job in journalism.
Well, per Matthew Dowd.
But I'm gonna say this though. Let me go back. I think it's important. I go back to answer your question. Is actually the reckoning is coming. To me, I think the reckoning is coming because for probably years, but it ramped up over the last decade, where actually the academia, journalism, and media has fermented this ideology, and actually it took hold into the political left, where actually you get punished. You get punished either at your job, you get punished in the social circle, and you are vilified as being, strangely enough, as you said, Antifa, anti-fascist.
Yeah.
But you know what is fascism? Fascism is when you cannot speak out, all right? And you're going to be put in jail.
So this is the other
So it's very
development, right?
ironic that
Traditional media, like The Economist, the Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, they've all been captured by lobby interests. Let's just be very clear, right? I used to gravitate towards those platforms because I thought they were independent and well researched and nuanced. Today, those platforms don't have any credibility. So what happened was, so the public have gravitated away from those titles to the social media space, where people like Charlie Kirk and whether you call it Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens or Joe Rogan or one of these people, for Matt Tabibi and all these other people, to get some point of view which is a little bit more independent, right? And then now you get these things happen.
well, the proof is in the pudding.
Correct.
Here's
So-
the thing.
So where do people go to now for independent news analysis? Because they're scared away the real journalists from the traditional space. Now they're scaring away journalists from the independent space. Where do people? So is there? What I'm asking is there some kind of assassination of independent news analysis? Because they've literally gone after both bastions now.
I call this murder of Charlie Kirk as the killing or the murder of reason.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. So.
I think this is the tipping point whereby this whole movement from the left of shutting down free speech is gonna get a backlash. You must remember that Trump won the majority vote, which is very rare for
Very
a
difficult.
Republican to win. In spite of, I would call it 98, if not 100%, the mainstream media all out against him. Okay, it was not even. It's not even shamefully flouted. It's just very shameless in the way they went after him, and then the way the law was used to actually either bankrupt him or put him in jail.
But let's be very clear here, Sam.
Yeah.
15 odd years of social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, have given the public, the mass mainstream, the mass people, a very acute ability to sniff out bullshit.
Well,
Right. So when for example, I've been, of course, I'm a cynical journalist, but the general Joe public who watches a TV program or who reads a news article, he or she can actually smell out the bullshit fast, and that's why there's been a mass repulsion of mainstream media into independent social media.
not really though.
I think so.
Not really though.
So if you analyze the voting patterns of the Reds and the Blues in the last elections in America, right, the Reds have actually dominated the coastal areas.
How long did it take?
Right?
How long did it take, John?
Which one?
The whole this movement and how it has changed. It has
People smell the
taken.
bullshit. They
Yeah,
can
but it
smell the
took
Wall
over a decade.
It did, of course. But
Yeah.
then we've come to the point now where people can smell out a bullshit news story.
And that's the reason why I said that actually the last election was the moving away of public opinion or how public perceive the credibility of the media,
Yeah.
right? And now with this that has happened, I think it is a turning point, and I think it's really a warning shot to the Democratic Party and the left that if they don't come to a reckoning of what they have fermented, within their ideology, I think they're going to lose big going forward. And the thing is this.
I actually take a very different
Well,
stance.
you
from
may be right there.
I think it gets a lot worse. I think that, ironically, Charlie Kirk talked about the necessity to stamp out the deep state fast. Otherwise, it goes beyond a point of no return. I think this is the work of the deep state. And do you remember? I watched Charlie Kirk on the Tucker Carlson show, and he talked about how essentially the Ukraine war was an extension of Russiagate, and he goes deep, he goes granular in that discussion. We can share the link if you want, right? I think it gets a lot worse. The other macro development I see in all this, is the similarities between what's happening in the West and America in terms of civilian terrorism, right? And what's happened in the last month when we were both away, right? What happened in Jakarta with the catharsis of the Gojek rider who was basically killed but then that was just a manifestation of the public dissent with the authorities. Again, people taking matters into their own hands. Nepal, I was just very nearby there in India, right? We saw people there take to the streets about the government's cancellation of social media accounts, right? And trying to quell public opinion. It is the rise of the masses, I think, which is the commonality in the world today.
If you ask me,
and the whole thing. Have we talked about we've talked about the fourth turning as well, right? This whole movement and this. I mean, this goes into a bit conspiratorial, right? But it is the change in forces, life forces. Is this change on constellations? It's about the whole. I don't know how to describe it, right?
Well,
but things are changing very fast.
I think you've got to take it in a structured way in terms of how we analyze the situation. Okay, in a sense that whilst I agree with you that there is a movement of masses, but I think when you look at America, you are looking at pure, I think, mostly an ideological battle between reason and actually between authoritarian thought policing. Okay, and they use the left use empathy as being their weapon to police your thoughts. Okay, if you disagree with my way of thinking, you are actually a villain. You are evil. You're Hitler. You're Nazi. You're fascist. All right. Whereas on the right, if I disagree with you, you disagree with me, what you will hear is basically in majority. What you will hear is that the ideas are ridiculous. They're not making sense. They're being dumb. It's a very wide range, between calling somebody an evil fascist that is a threat to democracy, and your ideas are not smart, you are not being intelligent, you're dumb, you are not being reasonable. It's a very wide asymmetry in terms of calling each other out. One would instigate violence. And this is where I want to take this before we go to Nepal and Indonesia, because I've got my theory over there.
Yeah.
Right? What we are seeing here in America is actually an ideology in the left that has basically been, to me, I have mirrored it to Islamism. Okay? Where if you speak against my ideology, you are an evil human being. You deserve to be put in jail or killed. All right? It's very different, compared to if I say, Chuang, your idea is stupid.
And then we're going to have a nasi lemak after
And then
this.
we can have a nasi lemak after that.
Yeah.
Or I say to you, you're being unreasonable. You're going to destroy our economy. Your way of doing things, your socialist policies is going to destroy your economy.
So here's where it's different today, Sam, okay? In our world, in this part of the world, you've got authorities who are bankrolled by the government to enforce this thing.
Well,
Wait, hang on. Hear me out, right?
Right.
In America, because let's just be very honest, big tech is actually one of the machines. A bit conspiratorial here, but big tech and
Okay.
social media is one of
Okay.
the.
I'm looking at you with a tinfoil hat now, but okay, go on.
How do you think people form their opinions nowadays? Right? People form their opinions based on conversations with other people, based on their consumption patterns of media, and based on their experiences of the past, right? When you have young people who don't have much experience,
Yeah.
who don't have many friends, and who form their opinions based on what? Social
Well,
media?
this is-
If you control social media, I control what you think
Well,
and what you see and what you hear.
I-
Sam, listen, hear me out, right?
Yeah,
Hear me
okay.
out, right? Okay. Now, what have we seen gathering momentum in the last 5 years? It is the spate of political terrorism, civilian terrorism, right? And I quote here, the January 6, 2021 shooting at a baseball practice of Republican members of Congress, right? Sorry, the insurrection of January 6, 2021. The shooting at a baseball practice session of Republican members of Congress in 2018. The plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020. The vicious attack on Paul Pelosi, husband of Nancy, right, obviously.
I'm
And
not
then the
sure whether
torching-
that one is political, but anyway, go
But
ahead.
it is nonetheless a manifestation of the zeitgeist,
I
right?
am not sure whether that one is politically motivated.
Okay,
Okay.
I understand that one, okay?
Okay.
Especially Nancy Pelosi, okay, right. The 2022 torching of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's family home in April, and of course the twin assassination attempts on Donald Trump on the campaign trail, right, last year, right?
All right.
And you could reasonably suggest that those attacks, those attempts were executed by members of the public, not soldiers or ex-militia or terrorists or jihadists. No, these
Well,
are people.
let me-
So that's the thing, right? It is normal people that used to think and behave in a certain way who now behave and think in a different way, right? Based on their opinions. And who's formed those opinions?
Well, then
Whoever controls the media controls your mind,
Well-
Sam. And this is what I'm suggesting, right?
Okay.
In America, where the media and technology is so prevalent, if I can control the way you think and behave, I conquer the world. Don't you think?
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Asia not so developed. Not
Yeah.
everybody in China has got Facebook account, okay, or Meta Instagram account, right? But in the
Well,
in
they
the-
are pretty.
yeah.
I mean,
but who
even in
controls the
Malaysia,
social
I
media in China
I
is the
think
Chinese
our-
government, right? But that's a different animal.
yeah.
I would say China is quite safe because the hand of Big Brother is very
Well,
very-
that means that one authority instead of multiple authorities are actually feeding you your
Correct.
your mental makeup.
So George Orwell was right. Big Brother is here and he's here to stay. Whether it's the government that controls your mind in China or whether it's the various factions, whether you call it the deep state in America, who control. And let's be very clear. What kid in the 60s would have taken to a machine bolt rifle and tried to take out somebody for a different point of view? Not really, right? Come on.
Of course,
It's a
there
very
is.
different world today.
I think people have a recency bias, if you ask me. Okay, I am not surprised that this happened in America. Not at all.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason is very simple. The reason is that culture is a very free culture.
Yeah.
Okay, number one. Okay, a lot of people here do not understand the Second Amendment in terms of the rights to bear arms. Okay, um, uh, an argument was made. Also, I mean, this is going on the social media on the left, which is that which they contend that he had it coming because he was for the Second Amendment, and he said that for the right of the Second Amendment, we have to take the risk of, or we must accept that there will be, what do you call, people who are going to be innocently killed by arms in order for us to have the Second
That's
Amendment.
what he said, yeah.
That's
Charlie
what he
Kirk,
said.
right. There's
And they
certain
take that
collateral
and-
damage to
And
that.
the left says, and the left took that, and I'm seeing it in the social circle, the last 24 hours on this being repeated verbatim,
Yeah.
the regurgitating, and
Hi,
this is what I
ironic,
find,
yeah.
right? And I said to people, that's their culture over there to have the Second Amendment. It's the same culture. No, and when I made the point that I said, look, it is worth for us to have thousands of people dead on the road for us to have the right to own and
car.
operate a car. And people, some
It's the same
people
thing.
say, oh, it's not the same thing between a gun and a car. It's the same
My
thing.
friend, it's the same thing.
It's the same
It's the same
thing.
thing.
But you know what? People are not smart enough or intelligent enough to understand the nuance of the two being the same thing, right?
A car is just as much a weapon as a machine gun. Let's
Exactly.
be very clear.
So,
I've operated my machine
and just because we get some Muslim terrorists plowing the car into crowds, all right, does not mean that I say, oh, we should ban cars.
Okay, here's
Right?
the other development.
But no, let me go and finish up where I think the legacy of Kirk, because I think he deserves to be taught in that manner what he has achieved as a human being. I was very impressed with this young man because why? He has no college degree. Okay, he built up a following by actually going into academic situation and calling people to come and talk to him. All right, and basically building that base by changing people's minds. Right, and with that, actually, I would think he, in no small part, made it possible for Trump to become president. Right, that is why he is so influential. And that by itself also is a reason why they want him murdered.
Let's okay, may I present a segue here?
Sure.
Okay. Sitting as we do in the Far East, Sam,
Right.
right? Some people in stateside might wonder, what are these two gentlemen trying to, why should we just listen to them? Well, I'll give you one takeaway, right?
Mm-hmm.
From people who sit in this part of the world and who watch with great interest what's happening in the West. These developments, as they are, and I'm going to take an anti-Trump stance here, right? These developments in the West with Charlie Kirk's assassination, the tariff policy, which has been essentially bulldozed by Donald Trump, and, for example, what's happening in the West and his anti-immigration policies with his, kind of like random testing of foreigners, who he's trying to purge America of illegal immigrants. I understand all that, right? What happens in this part of the world, right? We see the appeal of our own region versus the appeal of the West as this holy grail of economy and academia and superiority. It drives a further wedge between the West and the East, I think. And I see this happening with the kids who now want to travel and be educated in China and in India and Indonesia versus going to Australia, Canada, and the UK, right? I see a parting of ways between what's happened in the past with the globalization, and I see Asia getting further away from the West in this regard. And I want to cite, right, literally, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Narendra Modi having a shindig a couple of weeks ago, and they were basically saying, well, let's not be bullied by Donald Trump and his tariff policies. Let's do our own thing now, right? And they seem to be doing their separate dance, right, and settling trade in their own currencies. I listened to BFM this morning, and I heard the commentators on radio saying, "Well, why should I travel to America where I can be random tested as an immigrant, and it takes away the whole experience of traveling to America. Why should I do that?" Right? I see kids who now want to be who now want to go to China for the holidays. My 39-year-old brother and his girlfriend, they don't want to go to Italy. They don't want to go to Spain. They don't want to go to America. They want to go to China. All those, and I see the world becoming more divided than ever before. And I see people looking at what's happening in the West, and I see people talk about how dangerous America is, how dangerous France is, how dangerous the UK. I mean, even before we started recording, we talked about how the West is crumbling. I mean, this is what the West needs to understand. When we in other parts of the world look at what's happening in the West and how people can be gunned down in broad daylight for having a different point of view, what is the appeal of the Americans? What is the appeal of America? I don't know. I personally don't want to send my kids to America or the UK to study anymore. I think it's a mess. I think it's a complete utter shambles. I used to work in London, 2008, 2009. I could literally see the financial district, the square mile, decaying before my very eyes. I didn't want to have my first child in England. My curry house, my Indian restaurant, which I used to go to in Croydon for lunch every Sunday afternoon. The next day, literally, I saw in the Daily Mail 4 Pakistani kids shot down. In fact, they were knifed in broad daylight after school by kids, 16-year-old kids. I mean,
Their own gang.
yeah, right.
They carried their own culture into that place.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a mess.
Can
So
I
Sam,
may I respond on
Yeah.
that? No, let me put it this way. It goes back to a certain. It's quite complex actually.
It's very complex.
To unpack what you just said. What we forgot is that there is an ideological battle. All right, there is an ideological battle. We've got China that has actually rose up and have aspirations to be the superpower. And the CCP, in my opinion, has got a massive propaganda machine that actually flood the social media for over more than a decade now, right? And that, as you well put, the big brother is controlling your mind.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now, America has really not changed apart from what I've seen with respect to how the left has tried to actually censor discussion and actually make people pay for having a different point of view. That is the only thing in terms of values that I see have changed. If you ask me whether America has changed in terms of its chaotic situation, it's never changed. It has always been that way. All right? The difference is only this. The difference is you've got propaganda machine going on to say, oh, that place is crumbling down. It's like that. It's people are being randomly tested. Dude, I just came back from the States. My friends were telling me, are you not scared to go to the States? And then when I came back, you know what is the first question from them? Is that, did you not get any problem at the customs or immigration?
So what was America like? Tell me, man. Did you have fun?
I had fun. I had fun. The thing is, what do you call? It was the most pleasant experience in terms of going in. I mean, I've got my my colleague with me who has never been in the States. He's an ethnic Chinese coming with us. Never had a visa, right? And she was so reluctant. Came in with the husband with us. He was so reluctant to go because of all this media propaganda, right?
Well, let's be very clear. People are told to don't come to Malaysia. It's an Islamic country.
No,
but it's an amazing
yeah.
place.
So I told her, look, get going, and we got delayed for a year because of her being demotivated on that standpoint. But the minute she applied, all right, she got her visa in, I think, less than 6 weeks. Okay, and we flew in. We had a good time, and I'll tell you a very interesting encounter I had at the customs. So we went through customs, cleared customs. the old custom guy, or they call it custom, we call it immigration, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It was like, he was like, okay, where you guys going? Blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, we done. We went through, right? And then there was this customs lady, as we were walking out, stop us, okay, and just ask us, do you have anything to declare? Right? And I said,
Just out of a dirty joke.
I
never
know,
mind.
which is pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like,
I
no,
I like red Smarties.
and then
That's my confession.
And then the next thing she asked was, do you have any souvenirs you're bringing in, or gifts or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Because I think I must have mentioned, I said, we're visiting friends,
Yeah.
right? I said, yeah, we do. You see, how much are those cost, right? So I said, well, I think it should cost about slightly more than about $1,000, right? Because I bought some Selangor Peter stuff for 3 of my friends, okay? I mean, and she looked at me, she said, you've got to declare gifts that are in excess of $100, right? I said, oh, really? I didn't know that. I said, $100? I said, how am I going to buy stuff for my buddies for $100, man? What am I going to do? And she laughed and she said, nah, it's okay. It's all right. You guys are honest. You guys go ahead.
Yeah.
Right? So,
That's nice.
I know, but that has been my experience for 40 years about the United States.
So, okay.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, Sam.
Right?
Do you think that we are...
Dude, I went to DC.
Yeah.
Right? And the next thing I know is that I looked at this building as I was walking back from Waldorf Astoria. Right?
Hey, what are you doing there? Having lunch?
I was just like, dude, I tell you that hotel was gorgeous.
Did you go in for lunch? I know you did.
I go shut up. All right. So we were going down, and I was like, so I was walking by, right, and I saw this building, and I looked at my wife. I looked at I looked at my buddies, and I said, "Hey, I know this building. That's the FBI."
J. Edgar Hoover building.
Yeah, I know. So I was like straight away, this is Scully and Mulder place, right?
Yeah.
And I went right to the cop that was guarding the building, right? And I asked him, "Hey, sir, where the hell is the front door?"
Yeah.
And he laughed at me, said, "Okay, you turn that way." That was my whole encounter the whole time I was in the States. I don't give a shit. I was there the second day they blocked the roads because Zelensky and the European leaders were in town, right? I mean, it's just, you just need to understand, be friendly. You are a guest in somebody's home.
The takeaway here is don't believe what you read. And
Yeah.
don't believe what you... It reminds you of 2 other incidents, right?
Oh, by the way, I got to tell you this story, right? Okay, we were next to the Potomac at the wharf, right? Can you believe this? $2 oyster happy hour.
Nice.
And a gorgeous, Cabernet to go along with it.
Was your wife in danger after that?
Huh?
Jim, 20 years ago, my mate, actually, at the height of the Iraq War, okay,
Yeah.
he was traveling through the Karakoram Highway, right? And he was stopped by Afghanistan, stopped by Iraq, right? And he was having lunch in the local market in Afghanistan,
Right.
where CNN and Al Jazeera and BBC were saying, oh, this is the Middle East, it's going to fall apart, it's war torn and all that, right? My mate was having a nice falafel in the local market, and over there was a little fracas, right? And they were surrounded by all these BBC and CNN cameras, and they're just making a storm in a teacup, making a storm out of a teacup, essentially, right?
Otherwise,
And he was
it's not
telling me,
sensational enough, isn't
he was
it?
telling me, this is how the media...
No, but you-
So and then the other thing, right? I was in China 2 years ago. I went to China 2 different times. I spent literally 3 months there, right? 2 months there. And people were saying, oh, China's there's a slowdown, there's a demographic time bomb, and the economy is... I went to China. China was booming, man. I went to Beijing and Harbin in the east. I went to Yunnan and Tibet in the west, and everything's spick and span. Everything's new and pucker and everything, right? I thought to myself, there's a chasm between what the media portrays in fact, I would say media and social media, what they portray and what the reality in the
Well,
ground
the
is.
thing-
It's like what you say with America, right?
Yeah.
So my postulation here is this. I think we are really, literally in the matrix now.
Well,
Keanu Reeves,
I
right?
think
We are literally being fed this crap that unless we have what we think is an independent point of view, we're just literally being fed crap every day.
This is the thing I said. I said the only thing that I see the difference is that value of that ideology in the left that has made me somebody who consider himself a liberal to be, dude, I'm all of a sudden, if I was an American, I would be called a right winger, which then to me, let's close out on Kirk in this sense. Well, whilst I do think that it's a big loss with respect to, not to mention from a personal side, of him being taken away at such a young age. Do you know how much he has accomplished at the age of 31? It's amazing, right? And how he has changed the conversation and actually pulled the youth votes to the Republican Party under Trump. I think that part is, I don't know. I think the closest person I can see that actually takes that role or are able to converse the way he does has been maybe Vivek, but to take in that role again, because Vivek is running for
He tried for
the
the
governor
president.
of Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he ran for president as well a little while
Yeah,
ago.
but he's
right?
going to run for the
Yeah.
governorship of Ohio. So, I think leaving that aside now and saying goodbye to that, and rest in peace. I think what we do have to understand is this is going to be his legacy, which is it is gonna be a turning point in terms of how the left is going to be viewed by the majority of Americans, and it's going to be a backlash that they have never seen before. That is where I see the politics going, and I think they're going to rue the day this happened.
Well, there's never been a more effective lightning rod than martyrdom. Right? We've seen that many times.
That
right?
was exactly the word they have created.
Yeah.
A martyr.
Yeah.
All right. And it is coming.
They might have.
And it will change.
Whoever engineered this assassination might have just shot themselves in the foot because they've just created a martyr.
Well, I remember when Trump was shot in Butler, right? I say he won the presidency.
100%. That
Right.
image of him, right, standing out with blood on his forehead,
Yeah.
literally being held down, but to no effect by the Secret Service,
if you,
with his fist in the air.
and-
I don't even know whether it was engineered, but I mean, literally, it
No,
was
but-
so effective.
Yeah, but you think about it, right? You think about it. As I said to you, I think this is where when you ask me, I said, why are these two guys in Asia talking about this? Because we have an understanding, I have an understanding of 40 years of a very close relationship with American culture, American society, and the politics and the business, right? And I'm looking at it from a prism of somebody outside looking in objectively. So if American audiences are listening to us or listening to how I'm putting it, well, you better listen, because why? I'm giving you an unadulterated, objective point of view. I'm not living in that bubble. And I'm telling you guys, the left has just shot them in the head. Okay? So, there is the situation over there. It's never changed. The only thing is also what we have seen with actually academia is actually with the rise of the internet and the AI, I think academia is going to get hollowed out. Now then we segue to then the situation that we have here, which actually there was a question asked to me as well by an American. Why should we care about Nepal or what happens in Jakarta, right? Because really, they're rich. Think about it, right? The per capita GDP in the US is 80,000 plus US dollar per annum.
In where?
In America.
So sorry, who's got 80,000? You mean the Americans'
Americans,
GDP? Okay.
right? Okay. So really, that is a 300 plus billion country that is not overproducing, which means that they can really build up manufacturing capacity again and actually consume themselves. All right. So it sounds like, but you know what? Here's the thing. If you want growth, you want the other part of the global market to actually grow as well, because then that allows you with more growth opportunity. Otherwise, you end up with AI hollowing out your workforce, and you need an export market. Now look at what's happening with Indonesia. Now this is where I differ with you in terms of the similarities. To me, what happens in the third world countries and what happens in Europe is two completely different paradigm. Okay? Whilst it is a so-called movement of masses, all right, but it is a true movement of masses in, for example, Southeast Asia or Asia, because mainly, you ask me, it's corruption. Because corruption takes away treasury, corruption takes away your per capita GDP from the people. And when the people
I think it's the same thing, because in the past, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we were held captive by the corrupt, and we could not speak out. We were not even, we did not even have the courage or the autonomy to speak out in a coffee shop about the corruption. Today, very different. People act on corruption. Corruption has always been there, right? But what I'm saying is that people have chosen to take things into their own hands.
Buddy, how did China Revolution happen? There was no social media. How did India Revolution happen? There was no social media.
What I'm saying is that people seem now, in this day and age, they've grown a pair of balls, right?
I don't
Essentially,
think... Dude, I mean, this is... We'll agree to disagree on this, right? I think human being has really never changed. Okay, the difference is very simple. The difference is when you push people to a point where they have nothing more to lose.
That part I agree with, right?
Right?
Just like it was with the uprising in the Middle East, right? What was that, right?
When
you don't have food on the table, when you can't feed your children and your kids,
that's when they're gonna kill you.
That's when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah. That's when they rise up.
Yep.
And whether there is social media or not, it's gonna be irrelevant.
100%.
Okay?
100%. This is where you and I are in consensus.
The Shah of Iran, was toppled without social media.
Correct.
Egypt was not toppled with social media. What's the difference? The difference is people don't have anything to eat. The difference is that they've been pushed to the ground.
Brink. Yeah.
They are seeing their leaders that they elected dancing around, okay?
Celebrating their increase in allowances.
Having billions ripped up from in their safe houses, okay? And then being let go, no further action, You're just asking for it, buddy.
Yeah, 100%,
right?
man.
So did you see what's happening? And in Jakarta, I said to people, even when Jokowi was there, I said it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Because people are always fed by mainstream propaganda. Okay? I'm not. There are very few people like us, Chuang, okay, who read beyond what the news tells us. I said to people at that particular time, I said, they are heading for trouble. And people were saying, oh, they've got their democracy, they toppled Suharto. Remember that? And I was telling people, I said, they are in shit storm, buddy. You just wait. Okay? And you know what? This is the thing about the Gut Shot podcast. I feel like Nostradamus. Okay,
But
because
it's not. We are not as smart as Nostradamus.
Oh,
Chef.
yeah.
But it is not a. It is so easy to interpret what's going to happen next,
but
right?
but have you do you know how much we have predicted within the last month of us being on air, and it has all come true? Okay, let me put it this way: Nepal, all right, that is a communist regime that was elected. All right, so it doesn't matter you are so-called democracy or communist. If you put your people in a situation where they've got nothing more to lose, they're gonna tear you apart. Okay? And the thing that my answer to my American friends was this. If only you have a market, imagine India is less than 3,000, it's about 2,007 or 2,800 US dollar per capita GDP of 1.4 billion people. Imagine if their per capita GDP is 30,000.
What are they going to buy from you, right?
Yeah.
So I just saw
right?
the iPhone 17 launch, right? They're trying to make
Indonesia is
350 million
300 plus million people with a per capita GDP of about there as well. Right? I think less than that. Probably less than about $2,000.
A rising tide lifts all boats. I mean, we know that, Sam.
Right.
In fact, I was just in India, right? I was in the northeastern part of India. People talk about India being the next economic superpower. But
I don't think they will be.
No. Mate, India is in a mess. They don't even have road infrastructure. Yeah, they don't have road infrastructure. I literally saw a mass number of people homeless, penniless, entire families of 5 or 6 children and their parents sitting on a road divide in the middle of bustling, polluted New Delhi, eating from a piece of a newspaper, their rice and their dal on a road divider in the middle of essentially huge diesel fumes and smoke and pollution on a road divider having lunch, right? How do you come out from that squalor into what's happening in China, to even challenge China? I don't even know whether that can happen in the next 10 years.
No, I wrote a piece on why I think India has got a huge systemic problem that I don't have a solution even to propose. You're talking about a nation that has more than 20 languages, major
more
languages.
Than that. Our guide lives in born and lives in Pune. Pune is near Goa, right, or that part of the world, or the western side of the. When he went to Jammu and Kashmir with us in Ladakh, he said he's a foreigner in his own country. He doesn't have the language. He doesn't have the faith. He's got to apply for passes, right? Yeah. And from one state to the other, it's a different country, Correct. It's a different world, different language, different faith.
And that is their problem.
Yeah, it's too fragmented.
And here is where my segue is. And I think people hate this because one of the biggest problems when you talk about how people are viewing things, and the divide between East and West, so to speak, that's getting wedged. It's also it's really, to me, when I analyze it, I've been analyzing this and I've got this thesis that basically it's because of ethnocentrism, all right? Because in Asia, especially take a place like Malaysia, Singapore, or even in the ethnic Chinese in Indonesia, right? They still have their heart with the motherland, all right? So that ethnocentrism pride is there. To see that, and when you see the West versus China, you're going to gravitate towards China. And if you see China becomes gleamingly stronger, you're going to gravitate towards that. And then you've got a Muslim community that actually sees the Christian West and the Jewish state as being their enemy. Okay, so like it or not, this ethnocentrism and this religious centrism is part, at least I would say 70% of this prejudice. They are not seeing things clearly. Whereas for me, I look at things very clearly. I believe that if I may say so myself, because I can criticize my own people. I do that. I don't think most people do.
Yeah, the lack of self-awareness and self-honesty is very, very clear to me.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
So when
People
you
don't
talk-
critique themselves or
Correct.
their tribe
And-
as lucidly as they
Correct.
should, and they should.
You should look at social media and how our Indian ethnic group are so proud of India and Modi, right? I
Whereas
don't know.
on the ground in India, it's very
Oh
different.
my God. I don't know. I have no real opinion about Modi because I don't know enough. Okay? But I do understand the politics and the economics of that place.
Yeah.
You know? And I think even if he was a great man, can you imagine how is he going to govern 20 plus states who are basically 20 plus different
Countries.
nations,
Yeah.
countries,
Yeah.
right? And then a red tape that doesn't want to change because they're all considering themselves different countries.
Yeah.
How are you
I've just
gonna-
come from there. I've just come from there. They're very divided.
How are you
They're
going to
very
govern
different.
that? So that's India, right?
Yeah.
So let me then go to another thing. You want to talk about Indonesia, right? We already see the mess that is Indonesia. These are all the BRICS countries, so-called BRICS countries,
Yeah.
right? Then you've got Putin who's sending his people through a meat grinder with no care. No care. Right?
Yeah.
Okay? And then you have what? South Africa? It's becoming a failed state.
Becoming?
Yeah, I think, you know.
I know so many South Africans who have fled.
Right?
When you see the Indians leave South Africa, you know it's really fucked. Right?
So-
they're the last to leave.
So
by the way.
let me put it this way. I'm going to say it, and I've said it before.
Yeah.
The BRICS initiative is dead. Okay? The Belt and Road initiative is dead.
You think so? Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? You look at the Shanghai summit, the Shanghai Cooperation recently.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It was, to me, it was a very very stark picture of what that particular bloc looks like. Okay? You've got Putin, Xi, and Kim Jong-un leading the pack. All right? That's your BRICS. That's going to be your next group of superpower. All right?
Good luck.
Good luck to you, my
Well, I don't know.
mate. No, here's the other thing, right? That people seem to do. You may not have. I went to Tianjin, and I mentioned this before, a year back, right? I was struck by this. Things still look nice, all right, but I was already wondering, why are there not as many people as I think? Why are this factory that I'm visiting not running? And when I asked them that question, they wouldn't answer. You know, I don't stop running a petrochemical plant in the winter. Okay? My buddy, my good buddy, who was my business partner in my days of Perdana Petroleum, just came back from China. And what you just described to me about people being jobless and people on the street, that was what he was telling me about China. And he is an ethnic Chinese who actually was very pro-motherland. Okay? Something is going on, all right? And if you ask me, you look at how their GDP growth has declined. You look at all these tariffs that is being put forward, not just by America. India is tariffing them. Mexico is tariffing them.
Yeah,
Europe is
we
tariffing
don't
them.
realize there are a lot of domestic tariffs for foreign businesses.
Right?
Yeah.
Why? Because when you are producing 30% of global goods and you cannot consume your own goods or other people's goods, how long can you sell me stuff and I can't sell you anything?
Yeah, it's an imbalance.
And that, I'm going to say, is where we are at with respect to global trade and global economy. Now, go to Europe. What's their problem? I've said it before. It's a different set of problem. Two major problems. One is they've adopted a high tax, high socialism, welfare state for the last 40 to 50 years. Okay? They've abandoned through capitalism. Okay? And what has happened with that? Money has fled. Entrepreneur has fled. They have not innovated. They set up the EU and it's a bureaucracy that is bloated. And then you have a bunch of people who are on welfare. This is even before illegal immigration. I was watching it, right? A bunch of fellas, I'm making more money not working.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
You see that with the dole in the UK.
Why should
For
you work?
years. Yeah, that's no point.
And then, all of a sudden, because of your ideology of woke, of being this, you bring in this culture of people who cannot integrate or not have the work ethic, and they are on the dole.
No inclination to integrate.
Right?
Yeah.
And they are on the dole. Now, you got France, who's now in a debt crisis, right? You can't pay. You can't even issue your bond. All right? And now you're going to cut your welfare. What do you think is going to happen with the people who are on welfare? They are entitled. And they're going to riot.
Yeah. Just like it has always in the past.
Right?
All roads.
So,
Sorry, Sam.
no, the minute you make people entitled, right? And they expect somebody to pay for their life,
Yeah.
okay? And you keep on saying to the people with money or the people who are actually making money and giving work and say, I'm going to tax you 80%.
They're going to flee, lah.
They're going to flee, lah.
Yeah, of course.
Who's going to create the economy?
They've gone to Dubai. They've
Yeah.
gone to Singapore.
Yeah.
Right? They've gone to Ireland, Portugal.
That's the problem with Western Europe. That's the problem with the UK. Okay? So it's a different set of problem. They don't have that big corruption problem that is, to me, the biggest cause of the middle income trap in the developing nation. But they've got this problem of entitlements, of welfareism, and no longer being able to create wealth.
Two key takeaways for me, Sam. Before we wrap up this conversation, I think we've rambled on for a little while longer.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Dude.
I think two key takeaways for me.
Yeah.
First key takeaway is that we are very, 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 very fortunate to be in this part of the world where there is still growth, there is still a young demographic, there's a lot of ambition, and there seems to be...
Did you see what happened in Kampung Baru? Sungai Kampung Baru?
Tell
yesterday?
me? No. Earthquake. Somebody farted. There's a KFC
They
riot.
almost had a riot.
Storm in the teacup?
It always starts with the storm in a teacup.
It does, actually,
It
sometimes.
always starts with the storm in a teacup.
They tell me, I didn't.
All right? They were demolishing houses.
They've been trying to develop that place for ages, though, right?
Yeah,
Because
but
it's
you
so
know
near
what?
KCC, right?
Here's the difference, right?
Yeah.
You've got, and I think I was reading our friend Said Akbar's article, right? And he pointed a very interesting thesis.
Yeah.
It's a class struggle. We are beginning to see the class struggle, and that's not the first riot,
It's
by
not
the way,
good.
that
It's
we
not
have
good.
we are
It's not
seeing.
good.
This is the second thing that I've seen. You know, the police chief was hit on the head. He was bloodied.
Really? I didn't know that. Good.
Yes.
Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Right? Okay. So you know what? I would caution our political leaders to look at Indonesia and to look at
and
Nepal
take a leaf, yeah.
and understand that you are not immune.
All things considered, big picture, I
Yeah.
think we are in a relatively better part of the world than the other parts of the world, aforementioned. That's key takeaway number one for me. Key takeaway for me number two is the fact that if we don't take matters into our own hands, from a financial standpoint, right, we're going to be left behind. And I'm going to talk about in terms of, for example...
What do we were going to be left behind? We already left behind.
No, I'm talking about individuals, right? Do you know that money supply has never been higher than the current era? I think we're at something like $80 trillion in money supply now.
Global.
Global
Yeah.
money supply, right? Central banks all over the world are printing currencies like it's going out of business. In fact, in the last, I think, 2 years, the national debt in America has ballooned by $5 trillion. It is now something like $38 trillion, right? There's never been more money sloshing around the system than ever before. If people are not financially savvy enough to take advantage of this. I think because what is inequality? What the riots?
Dude, why do you think I went to the States?
Riots happen when you can't.
Last month.
Riots happen when you can't feed your children food. That's
Yeah.
what happens, right? When you don't have enough money to buy food for your kids, that's when you take to the streets, essentially, right? And I fear that because of the way our money is being devalued on an annual basis, even from a day-to-day basis, the ringgit, $10, 10 ringgit today, and 10 ringgit last year. How many char kway teow can I buy you, right? One char kway teow now is 12 ringgit in Penang.
Brother,
Do you know what I mean, right?
Bro,
So
I wanna inject here, right? Do you know when the Indonesian riot was happening?
yeah,
Do you know what our Grab drivers were doing?
they're doing the same thing.
No, they were sending food there.
Yeah, helping their
Do
brethren.
you know
right?
what that means? That should give you a warning sign.
Yeah.
They feel what those guys are
Yeah,
feeling.
right.
Okay?
I get it, bro.
And do you know that how big is our gig economy today?
Massive.
Massive. What does that mean? That is a dead end job, man.
Yeah.
You're hustling every day.
Yeah.
They feel the
Scratching
pain.
out a living.
They
yeah.
feel the pain of their brethren across the straits.
So that for me is key takeaway number 2. If we don't somehow find a way to offer financial assistance or to give them some kind of financial information to make it through what is a crazy period in our world today, there's going to be blood in the streets.
The problem is this. The problem is always solutions take at least 2 decades to materialize.
Yeah.
All right? Once you conceptualize something, okay, to put things into law, to put things into implementation, and then to see the result, okay, it's going to take you at least 10 to 15 years to see it happen. All right? Whereas you destroy a nation, okay, in about 2 years of policy
Yeah.
that screwed it up. All right? So, and that's the thing where I come back and I keep telling people when I look at what Trump is doing and how much so-called mayhem he's causing, right? By his disruption of the global order, global trade order, and even the internal commerce. Think about it. He's basically brought in approximately, I think, almost 3 trillion worth of committed investments from major companies. These are not MOUs, People like Apple is basically putting their money back into America, which at one point, Obama was saying, does he have a magic wand to make Apple come back? Well, he did it, right? So if you've got investment coming in at that scale, and then even if he only ends up with 10% tariff, which is the minimum, I think, an acceptable duty, 10 to 15% import duty, right? Okay, which then if you're competing for that market, you have to swallow. He's already addressing the debt issue they're having. So, and then with him cutting out all this welfare with respect to US aid and all this, he's doing the right thing.
I know you don't look at this, right, Sam, but it just seems to me that all roads lead to Bitcoin. No, it does, right? Because at the end of the day, right? I don't think the American debt situation is not a runaway train. It is. Even with all these, I would call them incremental.
Well, I mean,
$30 billion a month in terms of tariff income. It's not going to move the needle where your national debt is $38 trillion, right? Let's be very clear here. Do you know what I mean?
But
and
where it does
so
help,
I listened to Elon Musk.
I
heard Elon Musk go on the All In podcast 3 days ago, right?
Yeah.
On a 45-minute podcast, right? And he said at the very outset of that episode, he was saying the American government is fucked. It's irreparable. He tried, he failed. It's irreparable.
I would look at it this way. My answer to that is very simple because I think I understand Musk a lot. The guy is a bit of a, extreme in the way he thinks, and that's why he's so successful in his business,
Yeah.
right? But you think about it. If what the American government today is doing is what do you call, is doom, right? Which I don't agree
What
because of
happens
one
to
thing.
the US dollar?
No,
What happens to the US dollar?
Let
Sam?
me put it this way. There's one equation that people don't look at, which is basically GDP growth. Okay? And always people keep on saying, but I'm going to make a bet right now. Okay, you and I.
Okay, the first bet you placed was that the BRICS is dead, right?
Okay, yeah.
I think that's only partially true. I think that we are really in a world where there's no one or two superpowers anymore. There's going to be pockets of powers, right? Essentially, right? This part of the world, as ASEAN,
It's
could
always
be
been, if you talk about pockets of power, there's always been pockets of power.
kind of, but you had like the Americans, and then you had the British Empire, then you had the Russians, and they've been kind of like big dogs in the.
No, the British Empire was...
it was 2/3 of the global economy, right?
It
at one stage.
declined.
Of course, but at one
by
point
the
in time,
time
it
the
was
Americans
2/3.
go up.
Yeah, correct. So before the American economy and before the American, there was the British Empire, and before that there was the Dutch East Indian Company, right? So there've always been superpowers in the realm. I think we're entering a world where there are pockets of power, whether it's ASEAN as a force, whether it's America as a force, whether it's Russia as a force, or BRICS as a force, right? I think you are only partially correct. This is our little bet, right? You think BRICS is dead? I think it's kind of like it's not going to get the same traction, but it's going to be a force anyway, because they want it to be. They want it to be
I'm
away.
making the bet.
Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Your second bet is what? What's your bet?
No,
And I'm not a gambling man, by the way, but I'll put 5
I am.
ringgit on it, right? I'll see you, and I'll double.
I'll raise it.
I'll raise you.
it. I'll see you and I'll raise it. No.
Okay, what's your bet?
I'm betting on American growth. I'm betting on American growth. And I think the problem that I see, I don't want to see China fail.
Nobody wants to see anybody fail.
Right. The reason
I
is
think
very simple. Yeah, nobody wants to see anybody fail.
Yeah.
But as a businessman, you really don't want, because a failure of the Chinese economy is going to shatter the global economic confidence.
They just need to get their own people to spend their money. They've got so much savings. It's unbelievable.
Well,
okay? That whole
here's the problem, buddy. Here's the problem, right? You know what is our GDP per capita?
Malaysia?
Huh?
I don't know,
Guess.
18,000 US
No!
dollars?
Whoa, wait. Come on, man. We're about 12,000.
Really?
Yeah, that's how bad we are.
Yeah.
Okay? We're about 12,000 and we're pretty comfortable, aren't we? Right?
Well, you're the 1%.
Right? Well, 12,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay. China is about 13,000.
Yeah.
Okay? Now think about this, right? How the hell does China have just that much more than us?
There's 1.2 billion of them, bro.
Look. Wait.
This is a lot, yeah.
I know. But there should be more.
Well, you got a whole bunch of guys
should
at
be
the
more.
apogee,
You
right?
go
And
and
then you
look-
got the rest of them eking out a living in the villages, right? So the divide is massive.
You look at India, right?
What is India? Maybe 3,000 or something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's bad. It's
But-
bad, yeah.
Do you know, 1% of their population controls 40% of their wealth.
Yeah. It's
Right?
bad. It's bad.
So, you
But the
look
nature
at
of the nature of capitalism is
No. But that doesn't happen. It's always what you should look at is the share of wages as a percentage of GDP. Okay? And India is so weird in a sense that it's pretty high, but it's like it doesn't make sense. And the only reason that it makes sense is because when you realize that 1% is only 40% of the wealth.
Yeah.
Okay? China, all right, is not as bad, but I can tell you it's almost equally as bad. And that's their problem. And the problem is this, and this is where I think, and this is what's been going around town right now in China, is actually who's in power at the moment? Have you really been reading what's going on there? Right? I already said that I think Jinping has lost the control of
First
the
name
PLA.
basis, really.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on first name basis, man. I think he's lost control of the PLA. So the question then becomes, and they've put another committee on top of him, right? Which he abolished prior to that, right? So what the hell is going on? And therefore, the question becomes, how do they right this whole problem? The good thing about the Chinese system is, actually the CCP has got a decent system, had not Xi Jinping actually dismantled it.
6 months ago, Sam, when we started talking about doing this, right?
Right.
My gut feel, not gut shot, my gut feel was that this podcast was going to be massive. And the reason why this podcast is going to be massive in the future is because of all these things happening in the world today. And people are going to be trying to look to some avenue for some perspective or some context to what's happening in the world. My sense is all these things are just little rumblings that are going to come to a boil sooner or later, probably sooner, right? Whether it's Nepal, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's America, whether it's whatever. I think we're heading to some kind of like catharsis. Well, what the catharsis looks like, I don't know, but that is
I
why.
love the fact that you say you don't know, and then on this side of the table, I'm betting I know.
That's good. That's good, right? Because you might be Nostradamus. I'm the other opposite of this. But the thing is, I think people are trying to get some context
that's
as
why
to what's
our
going
conversation
on, right?
works, right?
Yeah, I
because,
guess.
Yeah, because
right?
you're asking all these questions. I'm giving you what I think is probabilistic. I'm playing poker.
Correct.
Right?
You're rolling the dice. I get it. I get it.
The way you play poker is you need to understand there are 52 cards out there, right? And you're holding this
How
card.
do I know you're not bluffing me, Santa?
Right?
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay. So it's all about understanding what's at the table, what's being played,
And calling the river. Okay.
and actually knowing the probabilistic what is happening.
Okay. We've been rambling for some time.
Yeah.
Let's give some kind of visibility, assuming anybody's even listened as long as this to us rambling, right?
Yeah.
Let's give them some idea of what's coming down the river in terms of where the gut shot is, right? We're going to have more guests, I think, within our peer circles to try and talk about what's going on in terms of their business, their experiences, their whatever, their perspectives.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and get more guests, right? We're going to try and do as much as we can to research what's going on in the world and to offer some context from our point of view, from a business media standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And we're just going to keep plowing along because I think that the world is getting weirder and weirder. And I think more and more answers need to be unearthed by people who have some understanding or some experience, which I guess at our vintage we have, right? I guess.
At our age and our
Yeah lah.
what say all the
And our weird
all
toilet
the,
humor.
Yeah, what did they say? All the rubber that's been burnt.
Burnt, right?
Yeah.
Stationary.
Yeah.
No, not really.
Dude,
yeah.
We've been through a lot. You look at what people like ourselves, I mean, it's very different when you have actually
Been there and seen it and bought the t-shirt. Yeah.
It's a lot different. That's why I'm like, when I hear economists talk on TV, I'm like, dude, you don't know what shit you're talking about. I'll take your numbers and I'll think about it myself.
Yeah. And numbers are just numbers anyway, right?
Yeah.
What are they? These just damn lies, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right.
No, my experience in business is very simple. Whenever any of my partners who come from the financial background give me a spreadsheet, and tell me that, hey, if we invest in this is the outcome, this is what we're going to, this one, I learned very early on because when I went along with it and I don't check it from my gut of running business and saying, hey man, let's see, in the real world, what's going to happen instead.
Yeah.
Things go bad.
Yeah. Pear shapes.
Yeah.
So, parting shots.
Yeah.
Like, share, subscribe, comment, tell us what you think. Call us damn idiots, I don't care.
Please,
At least talk to us, right?
Please, call us damn idiots. We don't mind, but, I think, I want to say rest in peace, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
I
man.
think what a loss.
What a job you've done.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Yep.
Okay.